Nation. This is your host, Sean. Thank you for joining me. And are you prepared to let your head spin? That's right, because today is a solo episode, so you're going to be walking through the mind and madness of everything that is moi, right? So welcome. Hey, if you're new here, make sure you hit the subscribe button. Go back and listen to other episodes. There's some great ones in there. For those who are new, not every episode is a solo episode, so I want to put that out there. Matter of fact, probably more are with guests. And in saying that, let's say, hey, if you want to be a guest on the show, I would love to have you. All you've got to do is email me at vertigopod, vertigopod, at gmail.com. That is the best way to get in touch with me. You can message me on Facebook and all of that as well, but email is very much easier for me, if that came out right. So so there's that. Now, before I get into the topic, I had kind of an interesting conversation with my son, and there's a new restaurant in town. Thought about checking it out, so I said, hey man, you want to join me for dinner? And this is through text. I get a response back, nope, having company. I just wrote back, okay, cool, right, 20 something kid who doesn't have company, why not, right? You hang out with your pals, do what you do, right? That's the fun of being young. Anyway, he then a few minutes go by. Now I just responded, okay, cool, whatever, right? A few minutes go by, I get another text saying, yeah, just gonna Netflix and chill. Now I'm Captain Literal, so if you tell me you're gonna Netflix and chill, then in my mind first goes, oh cool, yeah, you're gonna dial up some Netflix and pop some popcorn, eat some ice cream, whatever, right? And then the other part of my mind kicks in, that like alter ego that's like, Sean, don't be a dumbass. You know that this is just lingo, right? So it's like, then my mind starts spinning going, all right, he's a pretty honest dude, and he also is pretty literal, so is he just truly Netflix and chill? And that's what he wrote, but there's also this whole other meaning. It's interesting having kids, I guess, in this day and age, you know what I mean? Because it's like, you've got to be on top of how lingo changes, what things mean. Like, I'm not quite sure. So I'm in this confused state of, okay, Netflix and chill or Netflix and chill? Which is it? I'm not really sure. But anyway, moving on. That's, kids today in 2025. And I think that I remember my parents saying that about, myself and, kids today. And I was like, no, I don't really get what's so fucking odd about this, right? Whatever. So yeah. All right. So I thought about a little bit talking today about the desire that I think that I have felt through most of my life, and that I'm still struggling with, and trying to get over, but that I am just a people pleaser to like an nth degree. And this is something that's been on my mind actually quite a bit lately, because I don't know what kickstarted the thought, I guess, but I just all of a sudden found myself deep in thought and thinking about, like, at the age that I'm at now, how much time has gone by, that I've spent, like, not really doing maybe what I want to do, but because I've been more concerned about the people around me. Now, I don't necessarily think that that's a bad thing, too. I think caring for people and, being considerate of people and being kind to people and doing for others is important. I really believe that, right? I believe that when we do those things, we in turn are in some way better. But I also think that there's extremes. And what I've noticed for myself, at least, in keeping it on the eye, is that I am a person of extremes. So, a little Easter egg for you. my pixie stick nation. No, I'm just kidding. Oh, there's a reference to an episode for new listeners. If you don't know what I'm talking about by referencing pixie sticks, then I'm going to encourage you to go back through and listen to the past episodes because that is an Easter egg. Anyway, moving on. But I believe in extremes, I guess, or I've noticed extremes, excuse me, in my behavior. Not believe in extremes. But I've noticed them, right? So like I think one of the last episodes I talked about like being loyal to a fault. That I have stayed in jobs probably way longer than I needed to because I felt such a loyalty to the company that I'm working for. And that's not necessarily a fault. I think that there's a lot to be said for people who are loyal, and I also know though that again, when we're talking about at least myself and keeping it on the eye, like I was saying, I notice it's an extreme though. So it's not like I'm just, a good loyal friend. It's that like I am loyal like Velcro, brother. Like I am sticking to, whatever that is. Like I said, career, it's been mostly, I think, job. I really do have this like just this pride about whatever job I'm doing, and and then become very loyal to it, to the point where I think it does like disrupt, like because it's like, man, I've got my family and I've got things that need to happen. I talked about Gia, my daughter, and her needs, and it's like, I talked about her being in the hospital, for example, and the loyalty part of me for like example, career will pop up and I'd be like, but I really can't miss work. I can't disappoint. And that's what it comes down to. I can't disappoint people. So I feel so like, I guess guilt, the shame and guilt that, the toxic twins, shame and guilt. I guess there's a lot of that I feel, and I think it's a side effect of that feeling of, having to be a people pleaser. So that's not really loyalty, I guess, now that I'm fleshing it out, with the Vertical Nation. It's the extreme of, just, being all in to the point where it's like it almost, in some ways, is a stumbling block for me to make a decision on what I need to do. Like I spent so much time just like a Rubik's Cube, just trying to like get it all together, and it's got to be perfect is the other part of that, right? The perfectionism of, needing to really just, kind of lost the thought, but people pleasing. I think you get the point of what I'm trying to say. And I apologize for losing the thought, because what had happened was I looked at my notes because I want to always make sure that I'm not rambling on the solo episodes and that I keep things and thoughts moving. So before I get too much, and this is a good opportunity for me to say it's time to move on. So I'm a people pleaser to a fault, and it's become a stumbling block. But, fast forwarding to what I'm talking about the here and now, I've begun to notice it, I guess, within myself, which I think is a good thing, but I realize how much time has gone by in my life where I have just almost given up on my own stuff and whatever it was that I wanted to be or whatever it was that I wanted to do. I just let it go because it was more important to, people please and to make sure that I was there, present and ready for the people around me. It could be family, it could be a multitude of things, family, friends, work, all of those things, right? And so I also have just really kind of dug in that, I've always had this problem. I guess what it stems from is selfishness and not wanting to be selfish. And so that's kind of the seed of the whole thing, right? Is not wanting to feel selfish, because that's not good, right? And if I do anything for myself, then that must be selfishness, and so that's not okay. So this has kind of been like my whole thought process as of recent, at least, and just kind of thinking about like, so what is really the problem with doing something for yourself or following a dream, right? I mean, there is nothing selfish about having a dream. There is nothing selfish about wanting to go for that dream. Now, I think that there is a difference in being cutthroat, and that's not okay, right? But that's not at all what I'm talking about. I'm not talking about like axing people down and stepping on people to get where you've got to go. I'm talking about doing for yourself, but that and being able to have dreams and goals, but not, that doesn't mean anything meanly. It just means that that's, your path and what you want to do. And that so I'm just reaching this time in this period, I guess, in my life where I'm really starting to begin to realize that, we don't have to give up on dreams, and we don't have to give up on hobbies and things that we want to do, where that there's nothing selfish about wanting to do those things. And so it's just crazy to me because at 49 years old, this is all of a sudden a new thought, this is all of a sudden a unfamiliar place that I've been in to kind of start to come to terms with. It's like, well, Vertigo is a perfect example of that. Recording episodes of Vertigo and taking the time to do that is not selfish, because we deserve and to be able to live out or follow our dreams and do those things, right? But that was such a foreign thought, and I just guess that that's crazy. So that's kind of the topic that I was really kind of mulling over for this episode, is just like how damning, I guess, that can be, again, being a people pleaser. And then how, on the other hand, the I guess the duality of, but also such a sad existence in a sense, because your whole existence is just about making other people happy. And that's an incredible task to try to take on. I mean, that's almost an impossible task to just, nobody can make anybody happy 24/7, 365. It's just not, because my happiness, or how can I put it, right? Happiness shouldn't be because, how do you can't make somebody happy. They have to find that within themselves. They have to find things to be happy about, right? So you can contribute to it, but you can't like make that happen. So it's just this crazy thought of like, man, all this time I've just existed in this space of trying to make sure that everybody's cool, everybody's good, everybody's happy, right? And in that whole time that's gone by, and we're talking, decades of my life that have gone by, to living in and existing in that and realizing like this is just not, I guess, the thing is, I guess I really started to break that mold probably around 30, but it was like more a gut reaction then. Like I didn't come to the thinking until like more recently, but and I think also too, in my marriage with men, now that I'm kind of thinking about it, like, sure, the old habits die hard, but I also realize how much growth emotionally I've been able to do because I'm in a healthy relationship for the first time in my life as well, so that makes a huge difference, because I've been now kind of given the opportunity also, because Min's an independent person. And, at first I think that I wasn't really sure then where my place was, because again, I had existed for so long being, a people pleaser. And I think I tried that in the beginning, and of course in my relationship, but then quickly realized like that wasn't going to work. And so I think also that has helped. But it like I said, I guess before I venture too far off track, adult ADHD, it's a great thing. There's an Easter egg for another episode. Find it. Anyway, it wouldn't be called Welcome to Planet ADHD anyway. But anyhow, just all there's been these catalysts for change, I guess. And I'm just now really, I guess, starting to put all of the thoughts and feelings kind of together at this point. And this, literally this episode, I guess is really me fleshing all of that out, because these are the things that I really woke up thinking about. And thinking about like, wow, like I don't want to waste any more time because I'm in a space and time where there isn't time to waste either, you know. And I'm not saying that like morbidly. I'm just saying that honestly, right? I mean, I have approached an age at 49 years old where, 49 years are in front of me, but I don't know that there's 49 years behind me. You get what I'm saying? And so that's not a morbid thing. That's just reality. And I'm starting to realize like it's really important that, we learn these lessons because they help us enjoy life, I guess. I don't know. I kind of lost my train of thought, I guess. This is what happens when I get too serious. It also happens when I just really start getting in on a topic and I really start digging and kind of scratching at it. That I also lose focus because it's like I almost spend so much time going down this rabbit hole that all of a sudden something will catch me in my peripheral and I'll be boop, and then everything that was in front of me is gone. So you're getting also the live version of the ramblings of the madman that is Sean, right? So anyway, but yeah, let's move on. So struggles, talking about that whole struggle with being a people pleaser and really just trying to, facilitate change and understand that like there's nothing wrong with wanting to try to help and, please people, but it can't be the sole reason for your existence. And that's for me what I think I'm really trying to get at is I've had this epiphany where that cannot just be your whole existence. And you really do need to, do things that make you happy too. And that is also not selfish, that self-love and taking care of yourself and making sure that you're doing things to follow your dreams, there's nothing selfish about that, So that's what I'm talking about. So moving on, I thought it'd be cool to do some segments when I do these solo episodes. And one of the things that I thought about talking about was what's on my playlist because I think, one, it's interesting. First of all, I love music, and that's really the reason. I just absolutely love music. I have a connection with music, and I think there are a lot of us like this, but I have a connection with music that especially, it doesn't even matter the genre. If a songwriter writes a song, and I think I've said this in prior episodes, but if a singer or, an artist does a song and they just are either A, a really amazing storyteller and just really get into the character, or B, they really have felt the emotion and are putting that into it. Like if you can feel it, if the hairs go up on the back of your neck or your arms or whatever the first time or a couple times that you listen to a song, like it doesn't matter the genre, that usually grabs me. And so I think also since Vertigo is so much about, the mind and not necessarily mental health, but I think that is a key component, but, just the mind and what thoughts are spinning around my head and then in turn helping them spin around your head, right? I get to pass that on. It's the gift of Vertigo that keeps on giving. So anyway, I thought, music is such a defining part of, one, I think my mood. And I think that it's just kind of also fun because I love music so much. And so there's a little Easter egg too, I guess, like knowing that I connect with songs that the person connects with, might tell you a little bit of something too. I don't know. So anyway, I've been on a real jam band kick this past week. It started out for some reason. I don't even really know why. For some reason, I was just lost in thought about Humphreys McGee, which is a jam band that came out in the early 2000s, I think. And I really like them because they're different. They're not the typical, like almost, very dead, dead, Grateful Dead, very Grateful Dead kind of jam where it's very blues and or jazz in a sense. And with the Grateful Dead, even, the bluegrass theme there from Jerry. But anyway, they tend, most jam bands tend to be on the Grateful Dead side. Where I like Humphreys McGee is they're almost more like, they were like on the rock. I mean, I don't know who would be I guess Frank Zappa, maybe a little bit. I don't know if that's a good comparison, but they're different. Allman Brothers, not even no, because they're not that, and it doesn't matter, But anyway, I was on this quest to, for some reason, find these Humphrey McGree, live shows, whatnot. So I was listening to them. So that kind of brought me then into the whole, I forgot, I just haven't listened to jam bands in so long, and how cool, So I started listening to Mo, and I started listening to Widespread Panic, and so jam bands have been huge on my playlist. At the same time, and this is going to be completely wild, I've also begun listening to the new Lil Wayne album, the Carter 16. I don't know, 26. I don't know. No, I think it's legitimately the Carter 6. So listening to Lil Wayne, of course, then brought me down to all of the music that Lil Wayne has done over the course of his career, which is insane because he's collabed with so many people and he's done so many, so much solo stuff, and just, it's insane. So, I mean, you can listen to Lil Wayne probably for years, like individual songs. He's just got so much stuff, like I said, with other artists, with himself, whatever. It's insane. So that led me down that rabbit hole. So I got on a huge, hip hop kick, but not like Wu-Tang and stuff that I've talked about in other episodes, but more like, that like more pop kind of hip hop, like Lil Wayne. So yeah, I got down to that and ended up like kind of putting a hip hop playlist together. But then I kind of scratched that because I decided that I wanted to go back to the jam bands. So the jam band thing has kind of been the big playlist, I guess, since I keep going back to that. So we'll see how long that lasts. Jam bands are just good summer music too, I think. I think that's part of it too. We finally have hit some like true nice summer weather here in central New York. And so we finally are having a summer. Sun's been out because if anyone, and so anyone who listens to this outside of the central New York area, I had like, I think it was at last count like 26 or 27 weeks of precipitation on the weekends. So 26 or 27 weeks straight, it had rained and or snowed, because that's 6 months. It's going back to November, for crying out loud. So from November to current, we had 26, 27 weeks of precipitation on the weekend. So that means every weekend for 6 months it snowed or rained. I mean, unfucking believable, right? It's been just wet for 6 months, literally months. So anyway, we finally have gotten into some decent summer weather. And so for me, I think that also, again, changes so much of my mood. So I don't know what it is about summer. I do know what it is about summer, actually. I'm going to answer my own question. It's the concerts, right? Summer is just concert season. We have a very short season of things that you can do outdoors, in the warmth, at least in central New York. So there are a lot of folks who love the winter too, because there's a lot of snowmobilers and there's a lot of skiers, and I get it. And kudos to you, but that's not me. Summer is my jam. Excuse me. Summer is my jam. I love summer, and I love from, April it's still a little chilly, but once we kind of usually get past Mother's Day, so in May, it starts getting usually warm and nice. And then, of course, hit Memorial Day, man, and we're off in full stride. But it's been kind of a cold, wet start this year. So it's so nice to have the summer weather. And to me, summer weather, concerts, and what's better to go see live music than to go see a band like Humphreys McGree or Fish, or they're just great outdoor summer festival. I mean, right? And that's just the fun of summer. That's what we all look forward to for summertime in central New York, right? We don't get this weather like they do in Arizona, right? Like, this is our opportunity to be outside and to camp and to hike and to just, boat and, whatever, beach and barbecues and all of those things that are summertime. We only have this short window where we get to do it. So I think also, it's just jam bands kind of embrace that fun for me. And so, yeah, I can kind of see where that's been, on my mind, I guess, the last week. So we've definitely had that weather, and looking forward to keeping it rolling. Let's go, Mother Nature. Just keep it rolling for us here now that we've got it, So, and so last kind of thought in wrapping up, and thank you so much for hanging with me as I have done this episode. Last thing is I wanted to plug actually because typically when I have guests, sometimes with those guest sports come up specifically. Why am I having such a hard time with that today? Specifically, MMA typically comes up. And so just wanted to give a quick shout out to my son Sean and his buddy Andy, who do the Elbow Room on Spotify. So if you are specifically a UFC fan, said it twice now without goofing it up, specifically, if you are a UFC fan and want to hear just a local podcast, both Sean and Andy do a great job, and you can listen to that podcast called The Elbow Room. But I just also wanted to plug that I've been watching the Ultimate Fighter series. It's Daniel Cormier is a coach on one side, Chael Sonnen's a coach on the other side, and it has been an incredible season. There's only 2 episodes, but it's already off to a start. I'm really enjoying this season. It's been a real long time since I have actually watched The Ultimate Fighter. I mean, I watched it in the early days, like when TJ Dillashaw, who anybody who's a UFC fan knows what I'm talking about. I watched his seasons, but it's been a long time since I've watched any other, Ultimate Fighter. So to see the Daniel Cormier and Chael Sonnen show is kind of cool. And it's also interesting to see that there's 2 coaches who are not going to face off because both of those guys are retired. So that also brings a little bit of fun to it because you're really focused on the fights and the coaching. Because if any, whatever, I'm not going to get down that rabbit hole. It's a cool season. So if you are or had been a fan and you kind of stopped, this might be the season to rewatch because it's actually been good so far the past couple episodes. So yeah, so there you go, Vertigo Nation. Thank you for joining me. Much appreciated. Again, hope I didn't ramble on too long, but I also hope that what I really hope is that, through these solo conversations, at least, that maybe there's some sound bites in there that maybe you've thought about before or something that you are currently, mulling over, struggling with, whatever. And then it's just to be that voice that says, hey, we're all like in this together and we're all going through something, so why not just, one, be open? It's hard to be vulnerable, and that's part of this experience for me, too, is allowing myself to be vulnerable. I'm typically a very quiet person, very reserved, kept to myself. But then at the same time, there's, again, as I said in the very beginning of the episode, there's these extremes. So it's weird. I can be very private and kept to myself, like I don't have Facebook. Until now, I have it for Vertigo, so there's a plug. You can find Vertigo on TikTok, and Facebook, and I always forget about Instagram, but you can find it there as well. But on one hand, I'm this very private person who never has been involved in social media and whatnot. But then there's this other thing that I'll be talking with somebody at the grocery store and all of a sudden think for some reason they're my best friend and tell them my life story. So I don't know. There's this weird, dichotomy that happens there. So I don't know what that's about. But anyway, no, Vertigo is very much about being vulnerable, and opening up and saying, man, there's a lot of thoughts that race through this head of mine. And, this is kind of a way for us all to share our stories in a sense. And so I just appreciate, I guess, that one, you're tuning in and listening to mine, but also I hope that it also helps, all of you in some way, that you can also then know that you're not alone, that there are other people that are mulling things over, making changes in their life, realizing things about themselves. You're not crazy, I guess that's what it is. We're not crazy, man. We're just trying to live and experience life the best way that we can as people, as human beings. So with that said, I know this was a short episode. Again, I appreciate you listening, but remember, love one another, man. That's really what it's all about. There's enough madness and craziness in the world, so reach out to a friend, a brother, or sister who you haven't talked to in a minute and just say, hey, I've been thinking about you. That's all it is. So, hang in there, Vertigo Nation. We're going through this ride together. Thank you for listening, and I hope this episode made your head spin.